Historical Committee of the Council. Thank you all for coming. Congratulations to those of you that won re-election recently and those of you that are still running. So I'm going to start the consent agenda. I already had some items that were requested by Council Lady Mina Johnson to be removed. If any of you wants me to remove other items, just signal to me and I'll go ahead and do it. First item on the consent agenda will be BL 2019-1651 by Kendall and Roberts. It changes 0.18 acres from RS5 to SP zoning for property located at 2713 Torbett Street to permit up to 4 residential units, and we have a letter to approve. Resolution RS 2019-1855 by Bircher, Bedney, and O'Connell. It approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Department of Public Works for traffic signal improvements in connection with the construction at the I-65 northbound exit ramp at State Route 254. RS 2019-1856 by Bedner, Bircher, and O'Connell. It approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Department of Public Works for the reimbursement of railroad crossing safety improvements at 2nd Avenue North. RS 1857 by Bircher, Bedney, and O'Connell. It approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Department of Public Works for the reimbursement of railroad crossing safety improvements at 3rd Avenue. RS 2019-1858 by Bircher, Bedney, and others. It approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Department of Public Works for the reimbursement of railroad crossing safety improvements at Craighead. RS 2019-1859 by Bircher, Bedney, and O'Connell. It approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Department of Public Works for the reimbursement of railroad crossing safety improvements at Nolensville Road. BL 2019-1791 by Pooley, Bedney, and O'Connell. It accepts a new public sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manhole, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for 4 property located at Belmont Park Terrace, Harding Place, and Granny White Pike, and we have a letter to approve. BL 2019-1792 by Councilmember Sledge, Bedney, and O'Connell. It accepts a new water main, a fire hydrant assembly, and sanitary sewer manhole for a property located at 2223 8th Avenue South. BL 2019-1793 by Swope, Bedney, and O'Connell. It abandons an existing sanitary sewer easement, accept new water mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer mains, manholes, and easements for property located at 6021 Matpisca Road and Matpisca Road and number. BL 2019-1794 by Wiener, Bedney, and O'Connell. We have a letter to approve. It accepts permanent and temporary easements for Harness Drive Stormwater Improvement Project for 8 properties located at Harness Drive, Carriage Drive, and Sawyer Brown Road. BL 2019-1795 by Henderson, Bedney, and O'Connell. It abandons an existing water pumping station, brick building, and an associated easement, and to retain the remaining 10-foot public utility easement located at 1505 Dresden Circle. BL 2019-1796 by Sledge, Bedney, and O'Connell. It abandons an alley number 2086 and unnumbered alley right-of-way. BL 2019-1797 by O'Connell and Bedney. It abandons an alley number 384 and alley number 386 right-of-way. BL 2019-1798 by Scott Davis, Bedney, and O'Connell. It acquires a parcel of property known as 1012 Apex Street for the epic storm screening facility improvements. BL 2019-1623 by Councilmember Haywood. It changes 20.49 acres from RS20 to AR2A zoning for a property located at 3801 Knight Drive. And the last one is by Councilmember Glover, BL 2019-6. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's the consent. I have a question. Could you pull out?
You want to pull it out?
Yeah.
1623?
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you, Councilmember. The last one is BL 2019-1692 by Councilmember Glover. It changes from RS15 to SP zoning for property located at 4307 Central Pike, 6157 North New Hope Road, and Central Park, and numbered to permit a mixed-use development. Do I have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Yes. Sorry? Okay. All right, well, let's go with the items that are not on the consent agenda. The first one is a substitute bill, BL 2019-1631 by Councilmember O'Connell, who's talking to Councilmember Hurt, so we'll wait for him to get to his desk. Somebody play some music. BL 2019-1631, it creates Title IX noise and amplifies sound, and to consolidate existing provisions regulating noise, excessive noise, and construction noise into the new title. Councilmember Freddie O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is one that I think probably has the appearance of doing a lot, but really what it's doing by consolidating into a new title, this is more or less a copy and paste bill. The policy impact is effectively none, but after extensive meetings with constituents, with other stakeholders in various industries, with Metro Police and Metro Codes over the course of this entire term, and then extensive work with the Metro Council office, we basically arrived at an approach that would pull together all the disparate areas in which noise is dispersed throughout the Metro Code of Laws into one section to make it much easier for enforcing and regulatory authorities to reference. So this is effectively a consolidation bill. It should not change anything about the policies related to noise, but it should give a lot of clarity to enforcing departments, and we had some very good and productive meetings with codes and police on the way to arriving at this solution. I think it's a good foundation for anything else we will choose to do in the future, and I encourage this committee and colleagues to support it. Thank you.
You have some amendments, I believe?
Yeah, and we should, let's see. Yeah, I think I'm happy for Councilmember Allen to move her amendment if she would like.
Okay, so you want to move your bill first?
Sure, we can. Well, I guess, I think we need to move the amendment first, correct?
All right, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Councilmember O'Connell for all the work he's done on this. I think it's great to have it in one place where you can find it. But I did request that we create an amendment that would leave references in the places where it used to be, so that contractors who are looking in the building section would know that there was information about noise and where to go look for it. So all my amendment does is just in the places where the information used to be in section 16, 17, and 11, it just says now go to section 9 to see information about noise requirements. And so I would like to move that amendment.
I would consider this a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Second.
Don't I have to move the bill first?
I'm supposed to move the bill, then the amendment.
Yeah, Councilmember O'Connell, you need to move the bill first.
Okay, I will move the bill.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Now we have a debate, and now you want to move your.
I move a bill with the brief explanation which I already gave.
Second.
I mean the amendment.
You need the amendment. Okay, so we have a motion to move the amendment. Is there a second? Second. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the amendment? Aye. Aye. Okay, now it's back to your bill as amended. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Glover, you want to say something? No. No? Okay. Councilmember Mina Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I do have amendment, and which is I would like to consider it like a friendly amendment to, I think, protect residential neighborhood as well as lodging, which is in extent of residential where the sleeping quarter is. So just want to, while we are updating noise ordinance, I would like to add that so residential zone and sleeping quarter will be adequately protected from the noise. So I would like to move my amendment, please.
So we have a motion to amend the amended legislation. Is there a second? There is a second. Any discussion on her amendment?
I guess the only thing I would say, Mr. President, is by way of putting this together is that we really did try to leave this as a primarily consolidation effort with the hope and expectation that a future council might build upon it. So I have not honestly had time to study this amendment or its impact, and my hope would be that Councilmember Johnson might allow us to reconsider this in the next term.
Yeah, I just consider this as just a definition or a clarification. It's not, nothing complicated, because, intent of the noise ordinance is just trying to protect residential zone, which we already have, and just adding and just clarification. Since hotel, motel, lodging is not a residential, so we have to separate as a residential versus commercial. So I consider it as a really simple, friendly amendment. So I would like you to consider.
Could I ask maybe Mr. Jameson or Hannah, I guess, who worked on this extensively, to give some analysis of this amendment?
My understanding of the sponsor's intent, of Councilor Johnson's intent, was to extend and afford the protections of noise protections for those who may be essentially in facilities where they're trying to get a good night's sleep but do not come under residential zoning, hotels, bed and breakfasts, short-term rentals, et cetera. So the amendment would define those as lodging establishments and further define residential property, because the current reference to residentially occupied property was not well defined and would include those within the noise protections provisions that are otherwise in the amendment.
I will say I'm happy to resume this conversation in a few weeks when the next term begins, but I do, despite the sponsor's intent, considering the work that we put into this, to have this not fall into the work group and not having had the opportunity to discuss it. I know a lot of people are going to want to work on this foundation. I would discourage colleagues from supporting this amendment at this time, because we have tried to thread this needle in a way that we effectively don't. I think the bill is important as it is, without, as a structural change, the Metro Code of Laws, and I don't think this is the appropriate moment to start affecting outcomes.
Councilmember Hurt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would agree with my colleague, Councilman O'Connell, in this regard, because I know that I've had some concerns brought to me in terms of an establishment that's already existing, but then residents have moved in the area and there's been complaints about noise. And being that the establishment was there first and the codes was there that allowed them to be there for some time, for a resident to come in and indicate that they have concerns about the noise, I think that we do need to go back and review this and make sure that we are doing things with all parties being involved in accepting of what the bill is intended to do.
Mr. President, I think I would also add that I'm sorry.
She was getting ready to speak. Sorry,
I have a question to Mike Jameson. Is this bill is second reading. If I were to, and this is also on the public hearing, so if I want to withdraw my amendment at this point, and then would I have an opportunity to offer amendment prior to third reading?
Well, prior to third reading, but not at third reading, minus suspension of the rules.
So she can bring it on the Friday before, on third reading?
If she brings it on August 20th and it's on third reading, she will require a suspension of the rules.
Well, if that's the case, because my intention is clear, I would like to my colleague to consider
Okay.
right now.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would discourage colleagues from supporting this. This goes against the spirit of the work and commitments that I've made to stakeholders who have been along with us and have not had a chance to review it, including Metro departments. I think this bill, as filed, especially with Councilmember Allen's amendments, is a clean bill, and we can build upon the foundation we lay here, because I think Councilmember Johnson will not be the only one who wants to take advantage of the new structure, but I think that is best done next term. Thank you.
Councilmember Syracuse.
Thank you, Chair. My question for the sponsor or the amendments sponsor, this only applies to downtown?
The bill itself, again, the bill as filed takes various parts of the Metro Code of Laws that deal with noise across multiple titles and sections, and basically says, hey, and this is fairly consistent with common practice in other jurisdictions as well, this is how we're dealing with this collection of issues, and effectively does nothing else. I think the amendment actually goes beyond what is in the Metro Code of Laws in terms of a policy application, and that is not what I have sought to do with the bill as filed.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I guess my question is directed to the amendment sponsor. I have not had a chance to look at this, and as somebody who has got the greatest concentration of hotels in any district, I haven't even had a chance to look at it. So I would support Councilman O'Connell in asking for this to be deferred until we have a chance to check it out.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Scott Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Briefly, I just want to thank Mr. O'Connell and Berkeley Allen for working hard and coming up with a compromise, and I'm asking you to please support those two sponsors. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for the good wishes. So we are going back to Councilmember Johnson. Any
Sorry.
closing statements?
I'm sorry?
Any closing statements before we vote?
Yes, as I said, this is, since Councilman O'Connell's intention was integrate, upgrade, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to clearly define residential zoning, because intent of noise ordinance is protect residential zoning and residents from noise. And so sometimes residents, meaning, while you are sleeping. So while you're sleeping will extend hotel guests and motel guests and so forth. So I just wanted to offer some protection from noise. That was my intent. But if you wanna, you do not understand the intent and wanna kick the ball to the next council, certainly understand, but I would be really, cautious about those, unintended consequences. Having my amendment will clearly protect your neighbors and hotel guests. So that is my intention.
Okay. Councilmember Glover, is about the amendment or the bill? You're on.
Thank you, Chair. Well, so I'm going to agree with Councilmember Syracuse on this because it's kind of deep. And I'm also going to agree with Councilman O'Connell. I think he's done a lot of work on this. I have an amendment that's pretty specific to deal with that, just to make sure we've got that piece covered. But I think it's a good idea to do what the sponsors asked for, that if in fact it needs to be tweaked, once you kind of understand what the consequences may be and find out if there's unintended consequences in the next term, then the new council would be able to deal with that and take the time to hopefully, fully vet it, et cetera. So I'm going to be supporting what the sponsor has asked. And I will, I guess, second the sponsor that it wait until the next time. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to vote on Council Lady Johnson amendment. All in favor of her amendment, say aye. Oppose? No. It fails. Are there any more amendments? Councilmember Glover.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jameson, I don't know if this has got a letter to it on my amendment.
No, your amendment is in the packet. This
Right.
is in your amendments package. I think it's at page 3.
Yes, sir, page 3.
And this amendment would simply exclude the fairgrounds property at 300 Rains Avenue from the title, from the provisions of the noise ordinance.
Correct, because I think we already have things in place when they have races or the fair or all that. I think, and I'm just wanting to make sure that we protect that because, frankly, I'm not a lawyer, and when I read this, I just simply want to protect the property out there to where they can continue the activities that they're doing, and that's the purpose of this amendment. Doesn't affect anything else. So I would move the amendment.
Mike Jameson, question. Doesn't the referendum already preempt any infringement on being able to use the fairgrounds as they were before?
The referendum does preempt the ability of the council to preempt the uses of the fairgrounds.
But if we limit noise and by doing that, we are hurting the ability of use the fairgrounds that way?
Well, I think the response to that would likely be that the noise ordinance was in existence prior to and would apply across the county equally to all properties, and it's not specific to the fairgrounds or limiting its use.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Jameson, if I may, sorry, Chair, but if I may, let's expand your answer if you wouldn't mind. This amendment would not take into effect or take into on this particular bill, would not consider any other property than just right there at the fairgrounds. So all it's really doing is making sure we observe the charter amendment that was made with regards to that piece of property. Did I state that properly?
I mean, it's true.
Okay, so thank you, Councilmember Sledge. So we have a proposed amendment by Councilmember Glover. Is there a second? You don't have a second.
So, Mr. Jameson, tonight at the meeting, and I can still bring it even though the committee would not consider this. Okay, perfect. I'll do that. Thank you.
Councilmember Sledge, I'm sorry that I missed that. Thank you. Councilmember Withers, would you like to? I mean, we are already over. All right. So are there any more amendments? No? So Councilmember O'Connell, the bill is yours. You want to move it as amended?
Yes, please, Mr. President.
So we had a second before. All in favor of the legislation as amended, say aye. Aye. Oppose? No. I think it passes. Thank you. We're going to go to the next one. Next one is RS 1861 by Council Members Bircher, Witter, and others. It declares surplus and authorizes the conveyance of property to certain nonprofit organizations and authorizes grants not exceeding $9,800,000 from the Barnes Fund for affordable housing to certain nonprofit organizations for the purpose of constructing and rehabilitating affordable or workforce housing. Councilmember Withers, would you like to speak on this one? All right, so, no? Yes or no? Okay.
Pulled from consent, just if there are any questions.
All right. So would you mind moving the legislation? So we have a motion to move the legislation. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Council Lady Mina Johnson, you asked to pull it out of the consent agenda.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just curious, these, I believe, 10 parcel and average of about, 0.24 to range from 0.09 acre to 0.24 acres. How many units will be built, because majority of the zoning will be RS5, R6, and SP. So I'm just wondering how many units will be built on these 10 parcels, and 9.8 are used to build those, and what's the purpose of the funding?
I'm asking the mayor's office to answer the question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Hannah Davis. I'm at the mayor's office, and there will be 372 units built with this $9.8 million. That funding went to 7 organizations in 3 categories of funding. Home ownership, which allows people to buy homes at 80% and below of area median income. Renter, which provides renting options at 60% and below of area median income, and then our rehabilitation program, which through Rebuilding Together Nashville in this round assists in the efforts to stop gentrification and displacement by working with homeowners to weatherize and improve their homes so they're able to stay in place. In reference to the 10 properties, those are back tax lots that we received after they were reviewed by other metro departments to see the best and highest use of those properties. And then they go into our affordable housing portfolio. As part of the RFP that was released in the spring, we released $9.8 million for RFP, along with a spreadsheet of back tax properties. The nonprofits that apply go through and analyze those properties to best understand where they can submit something that will fit the use and need and design of the neighborhood, and also elevate the design of the neighborhood. That specific grantee is here and can answer questions regarding the houses that he plans to put on those lots. There's a really exciting project that's going on in one of those.
Well, that'd be great, because 328.25, that's a great, asset to the, affordable housing. I'm pleased to hear it. And I would like to see, how those 10 parcels will be utilized, further.
Great. Eddie's here and can speak to those. And I will say that those back tax lots, just for your information, require a lot of extra work by the nonprofits. And so we're really grateful to the nonprofits that then take those on and go through the title work to clean those up and make them buildable. So obviously they can go onto the property tax rolls, but in addition, provide a really valuable asset to the affordable housing community.
All right.
Eddie Latimer, can you say what your agency is, please?
Yeah, I'm Eddie Latimer. I'm the CEO of Affordable Housing Resources, and we're a local nonprofit housing development company.
Go ahead.
In our use of the back tax lots for home ownership, what we do is we have the home, the lot, and with the lot, we're able to borrow 100% construction loans from the banks. And this is very good for the banks because it gets them invested in neighborhoods they often don't work in, but it gets them invested throughout the whole city. And then what we are able to do is we're able to build this home, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, say for $180,000. So what happens, though, is if we sell this home for $180,000, everybody in your district will be calling you up because we've just brought down property values. So what we do is we get the appraisal, let's say it's $300,000, and we will sell the home to a buyer for $300,000, but they only have to qualify for a $180,000 mortgage. So they will come and get the mortgage. The mortgage will pay for all of our costs that we have in that home, and then we take that $120,000 balance and we hold that as a soft second. And what that does is the family never has to pay on that, so it keeps their home affordable. It keeps the neighborhood prices stable. And when the family gets ready to sell it, if they sell it to another low-income family, which is part of the rules of the Barnes Fund, then we can pass that $120,000 on to the new buyer. And let's say like the home sells for $320,000, the family who is living in that home gets to keep the $20,000 because the growth of equity is really one of the big points of home ownership. So that's basically, and we can only do this because we are given the land.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sledge.
Thanks, Chair. Just when we get to the point, I think we had a housekeeping late filed amendment that gets a parcel number right that we might need to consider.
Okay, you want to move it?
Yeah, sure. I'll move the late filed amendment regarding the parcel ID number.
Is there a second? We have a second. All in favor say aye. Oppose? All right, we're back to the legislation as amended. Any more discussion? No? All in favor say aye. Oppose? Thank you very much. Councilmember Hager, sorry. I apologize, I didn't see.
Just one quick question of the gentleman there. What happens if it goes into foreclosure?
Eddie, would you mind coming back? Sorry, Councilmember, I didn't saw that you
I'm
had-
okay with it. I just wanted to ask that question.
Sure.
Now, if it goes into foreclosure, generally, since we have a second mortgage on it, we'll know.
Okay.
And we would go to the bank and offer to buy it from the family with a quitclaim deed, just to get them out, and then we would take responsibility to then find a new low-income family and resell it.
All right, so you'd keep a deed of trust on it then, correct?
Well, we will have the lien, but not the
Right.
first mortgage, but we'll be in relationship with the bank that has the first.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Latimer. Next resolution is RS 2019-1863 by Bircher and Bedne. It approves an amendment to the lease agreement between the Metro Government and Square Investment Holdings, LLC, for office space in the Washington Square building located at 222 2nd Avenue North. I'm the sponsor, so no, it wasn't part of the consent agenda.
It means 1861.
Oh, the prior one? Yes, we did. Thank you. Thank you, council member. Okay, so I make a motion to approve this one. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Council Lady Mina Johnson, you had asked to pull it out. We're talking about 1863.
1863. Nope. I have no problem.
Okay.
No question on 1863.
All right, well, all in favor say aye. Oppose? It passes. Next one. BL 2019-1633. It's on second reading. It amends the Metro Code regarding short-term rental property owner-occupied and short-term rental property non-owner occupied. Councilmember Berkeley Allen. Where are you? There.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the bill, and I believe there are some amendments.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? We have a second. Any discussion?
Do I need to go back through while we're doing this, or should we just jump right into amendments?
Whatever you want to do. You have the floor.
Okay, I'll just real quickly run over. What this bill does is several things. It incorporates regulations that were passed at the state level, making us consistent with state legislation. And it also removes RM as one of the zoning districts where non-owner occupied permits would be allowed in the future. We're doing this because we were seeing several things happening. It was becoming more and more difficult for people to rezone to RM to use it for residential, which is its intended use, because the neighbors were objecting because they were concerned that it would be used for short-term rental, since that's currently an allowed use. And secondly, we were seeing that it is driving prices up, which again is making it harder for us to create more housing for people that just want to live there. So that was what prompted this to happen. The timing was related to getting finished with the fee study that we were waiting for so that we could do all this short-term rental stuff at once. So that's why we have landed here at the end of the term dealing with something that's fairly complex. A lot of work has gone into discussions trying to make adjustments to the effective date of this. And I've gotten good feedback both from owners, potential owners, and from neighbors. And we continue to try to find some middle ground that will work for everyone. And I think that the amendments to be offered can get us to that. So I would welcome the offering of an amendment.
First amendment, I think, is Councilmember O'Connell. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, my biggest concern about the substitute that was filed on this bill, and I appreciate the work that Councilmember Allen has done, was that it completely changed the way that a permitted use would work in this circumstance. And I am offering an amendment that basically restores to the scenario of the bill as filed, and also is consistent with what we did with BL 2017-608. I acknowledge that multifamily is a somewhat different construct in terms of financing in many cases than we see in the single-family market, and so the scenario that I have discussed at length with the NAACP, with the development community, with residents, is that I think we want to maintain that the a scenario in which the permit resides with the applicant rather than the property, but because of the nature of the financing here, and I appreciate Councilmember Allen working very hard not to be too disruptive, we're going to allow 2 transfers under the terms of this amendment, but this is a compromise that Councilmember Allen and I and a number of parties have worked on here, and I encourage colleagues to support this amendment. Thank you.
So we have an amendment filed by Councilmember O'Connell. Is there a second to his amendment? There is a second. Are there any comments? Councilmember Mina Johnson.
Yes, my question or comment is, I mean, this short-term rental is indeed really complex issue. And my biggest problem is, I think, biggest stakeholder, neighborhood, coalition of neighborhood group was not properly consulted. That's number one concern. And amendment offered this particular section, I want to question is, it's referred to section 17.16.250, and I think it will kind of remove the section E1, only one permit shall be issued per lot in single-family and two-family zoning district. And then also, F is ownership of two-family dwelling. The property ownership of the two-family units cannot be divided, and the property, the two-family unit shall be owned by the same person, and one of the 2 units shall be the primary resident of the owner. And prior to the issuance of permit, an instrument shall be prepared and recorded with the registrar's office, governing that the two-family dwelling may only be used under the condition listed above as long as STR owner-occupied permit is valid. But that will says if the permit was obtained prior to July 1st, 19, this section will be excluded. So I am a bit confused. Could you please clearly explain to me what this exclusion will do?
Mr. President, I can take a stab at this. There were, after the passage of BL 2017-608 last year, we had an administrative issue that resulted in erroneous issuance of a bunch of permits that led to a number of lawsuits that are actually in effect right now. I believe Metro Legal agrees with this, and Mr. Jameson can probably speak to this, but if we adopt this provision of the amendment effectively, we will flush the queue of those lawsuits, which are questionable at best, going to fall in favor of Metro law and just the circumstances under which they were issued, right? The permits were issued. There was an attempt at a rescission of those permits, and I think this is basically an attempt to clean up the legal ramifications of an administrative issue.
Any more comments, questions? All right, so we're going to be voting on the amendment submitted by Councilmember O'Connell. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? The amendment.
Abstain.
We have 1 abstention, and then everybody else voted in support. So we are back now to the legislation. Councilmember Berkeley Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to acknowledge how much work has gone into this. I know it's complicated. I know it could involve a whole lot more conversation, but I feel like this group knows this issue better than any group coming in any future time. And I would ask for support for this and ask to move the bill as amended.
Okay, so we have, yes, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I greatly appreciate, lead sponsor Allen's work on this, and I know she met lots of stakeholders. But again, unfortunately, larger stakeholder, neighborhood group, has not had a chance to properly vet this amendment. So I have amendment I will not offer today, but I have amendment that is leave everything alone as is. So current RM property owner can resume apply for the permit non-restrictively. My amendment does is just comply with state legislation they passed past spring. But with respect to Council Lady Allen's work, I will not offer that amendment, but my sentiment is the issue as complicated is the short-term rental. We should not pass at the last minute, and everybody should be on the same page. So I'm really reluctant to support this. So that's why I am offering the amendment. Just let next council take their time and learn what exactly short-term rental bill do. So this, I'm totally agreement. If the investor already invested, we should not change the rule in the middle of the game. So they should have opportunity to continue what they plan to do. So that's why my amendment sitting right now is just to do that. And then next council can properly meet with all the stakeholders. But with respect to Council Lady Allen's work, I will not offer that amendment, but I just want to let people know, because this is a complicated issue. We should not rush into it.
Okay.
So.
Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I can support the bill, and I'm going to tell you why. Because you and I and Council Lady Allen passed the original bill in our first term sitting on this floor. With I heeded a warning. I said, we're opening up Pandora's box here. And I think it's going to create things that will be unintended consequences that we don't fully understand.
We don't have any more quorum, right?
Huh?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
You believe we're not going to have a quorum?
Oh, I'm sorry, Chair. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, and while I appreciate the fact that the next council may not have the understanding, they may well have the understanding. So I don't like to assume what people know and don't know, because in a month, you're going to have a new council that's sitting here, and therefore, because of the complexity of this issue, I think the right thing to do, given the information I've heard from the neighborhood groups, from the owners and everything else, there clearly is not a 100% consensus right now. So with that being said, I'm going to ask that we not support this and put it off till the next term. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, don't leave, please. All in favor of the legislation as amended, say aye. Aye. Oppose? No. So let's raise hands. All in favor, raise your hand.
Where are you?
I'm opposing. So oppose, raise your hand.
4 to 4.
All right, you can go. We have other legislations, but if you have to go to another place, we'll be losing the quorum. We wanted to at least get this one reviewed. Are we out of quorum now, or we still have it? Okay. Let me go to the next one. Until we lose it. BL 2018-1413 by Councilmember Scott Davis. It's on third reading. It changes 0.33 acres from RS5 to SP zoning for the property located at 927 Douglas Avenue. Councilmember Scott Davis, you have the floor.
Committee, I'm sorry, Pardon, Chair. I'd like to move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. Councilmember Mina Johnson.
Yes, this one is a question to planning table. And I think this one is started from RS5 to R6A, and that was approved. And then it was changed to RM20, and this RM20 was disapproved. And then now this one is SP-MR, but in line with RM20. So I think even SP, RM20, and still only difference is no short-term rental. So what's the change? Because lot is the same, constraint of no rear alley is the same, and still usage is RM20, and still same the density. Why this time it can be approved?
The Planning Commission recommended approval based on the location on a corridor and also the location adjacent to some multifamily housing that's a part of the Nashville or Lincoln College of Technology, formerly the Nashville Auto Diesel College. And so with the SP and limiting the short-term rental uses so that not owner-occupied are not permitted, it was recommended for approval.
So only difference is a short-term rental is not allowed because the lot has not changed, corridor has not changed, everything stays the same. Only difference is no short-term rental usage was not allowed.
Correct. That was removed through a substitute, and it has been recommended for approval.
Thank you for the explanation. With the input from the newly elected council member, at this time, I cannot support this one.
Oh, what? Hold on. Kim Tucker's 925 Douglas?
927.
This is on 927 Douglas Avenue.
Okay. Seems like we're always moving the bar for African Americans in this city. Jump through this hoop, jump through that hoop, remove short-term rentals. Kim Tucker is a long-term resident of District 5. And she's trying to build homes for her two sons on their extra piece of property here. And it's been improved. We first say, hey, I'm against it because planning is against it. I'm against it because of STRs. Well, the plan wasn't for STRs, so we took that out. And now the commission has ruled in favor. So let's just move on. Please approve this bill. Thank you.
Well, I think she asked you a question. She was wanting to know what was different between before and now.
No short-term rentals, and also basically no short-term rentals, which were the primary concern.
Thanks. So we have a motion to approve. Yes, Councilmember Syracuse. Oh, Councilmember Glover was there before you.
Yes, for point of order.
Okay. Can you push the button, please? There. Thanks.
I'll move the bill because Councilman Davis is not on the committee.
Oh, thank you.
Didn't move.
All right. All right, Councilmember. Thank you, Councilman Syracuse. Glover?
So then I'm going to second it. I didn't realize we had not moved it. So then I'm seconding it that way. All right. So here's the thing. The councilman in that district heard the concerns, and he's dealt with it. And so as far as I'm concerned, the things that were asked for are now there. So I'm going to be supporting him, and I ask the rest of us to please support him. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second, properly second and properly motion. And so now, is there any more discussion? No? All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, thank you. It passes. Thank you very much. Next item, do we still have a quorum?
Still have a quorum.
All right. Next item is BL 2019-1537 by Councilmember Scott Davis. This approved by the Planning Commission. It changes 0.18 acres from RS5 to R6 zoning for a property located at 327 Gatewood Avenue. And I need somebody to make a motion. We have a motion by Councilmember Syracuse. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oh, yes. Councilmember Mina Johnson.
Just a little question to the sponsor of the bill.
Is that on?
I think this one was at the Planning Commission public hearing, the council public hearing, the owner or a developer was expressing that will be attached duplex, so to match up with the neighborhood. Is there any further discussion about this parcel?
Yeah, and I apologize to the cabinet, I'm sorry, to the committee.
We are out of quorum. We're going to wait for a couple of minutes, and if we don't get the quorum, we're going to terminate the meeting.
I need to step out and see if I can join.
Yeah, please don't leave. We're trying to bring it back.
I was just going to check and see if my bill is up. 'Cause I
Yeah.
didn't do a letter.
Oh, gotcha. Let's wait a couple of minutes and see if we can get, this meeting extended so long that other people had to go to other committee meetings.
The only favor I would ask of us then is if I miss this meeting and they defer by rule, I'm going to ask to suspend the rules tonight.
Absolutely.
Because I have some bills up, you know what I mean?
Well, let's see. Let's give it a couple of minutes. Please be patient. No? All right. Meeting is adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.